go over now to check in with Esther for News and Business. Hello, Esther.
Hi, Aneta.
So the latest report right now is that the International Monetary Fund, IMF, is warning, and not just Nigeria now, but also other oil-producing countries about, rising debts and, of course, borrowing. So, and I hear that, Nigerians have been reacting, and one man in particular has something to say. Let's know more about that.
Yes, actually, the Vice President of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Gabriel Idahosa, has been reacting to the IMF report on the likelihood of debt crisis in Nigeria. The International Monetary Fund has been warning that Nigeria is at the risk of debt crisis if the country does not cut down on its borrowing. But Idahosa has a different opinion.
The Debt Management Office is correct that there is no crisis at this point, and there are certain parameters that are used to really indicate whether there is a debt crisis. One of them is the debt to GDP ratio of a country. At this point, Nigeria is at 21%. And generally, when a country is below 40% of debts to GDP, you are considered safe in the sense that your debt level can be accommodated within that size of your GDP. So to that extent, Nigeria has not overborrowed. You could technically say it's Nigeria is underborrowed. But the other key parameter is your debt service ratio to your revenue. That is how much of your total revenue per annum you spend to service debts. That is where the IMF has a primary concern, and also the Nigerian business community is concerned that at this point, the federal government is spending about 70% of its revenue to service debts, which means that really it cannot service debts from its revenues. That's why it is borrowing to service some of those debts. So it is refinancing those debts. It's not a lot of the borrowing is not new debts, but it's just borrowing to pay all debts, because out of its current revenue, it cannot pay all the debts that are due. Because if you spend 70% of current revenue to service debts, it means that a lot of other areas will suffer. Services will suffer, capital expenditure will suffer. So that is the area of concern, that our revenues are not going as fast, are not growing as fast as our borrowing is growing. And even the Debt Management Office acknowledged that all they need to do is to continue to grow Nigeria's revenue so that we can pay those debts.
Idahosa has also been speaking on the possible causes of Nigeria's food inflation, which has been rising in the past 2 months after 18 consecutive months of decline. Here's what he has to say.
The Debt Management Office is correct that there is no... Well, two reasons. One remote, that is much longer, one immediate. The remote one has been the fact that we lost most of the Northeast in agriculture for several years, and that meant that our capacity to produce food at the level we were doing before the crisis really aggravated was reduced. That is the remote cause. The immediate cause, of course, is the massive flooding, which we had in several parts of the country. A lot of areas, several states lost several hectares of farmlands. In most cases, these were farmlands that were just ready for harvesting. Rice farms, a lot of rice farms were affected. Other vegetable farms across various states, all along the Niger and the river basin, were also severely affected. And not only were farms affected, the road infrastructure, a lot of bridges were destroyed. The road that took the farms, the jetties, the river ports that were used to move products were also affected. So both the food themselves and the logistics of moving the food to the urban areas were all affected. So that's what is reflecting in the food price inflation we are seeing, but which is a short term, because hopefully we don't have another flood next year. We import to the extent that we don't produce some of the products, but we have the capacity. So we import as a matter of default because we don't produce enough rice, for example. we import. And of course, we import the inflation with it because of the naira dollar exchange rate. So the real cause of it is our inability to locally produce. Once we don't produce locally, it is now a default situation that we now import.